Well, welcome back to our church planting weekly Zoom interview. It's really good to have you join us once again and for another amazing mission story. And I'm really delighted to actually head away from the coast. We've been really hugging the coast over the last few weeks and head into the inland of Australia, regional Australia, which is really amazing. And so I've got a good friend of mine, colleague. His name is Shaun Hepworth, right? And really good to have you here. So tell us a little bit, what's life like for you, where God has placed you in ministry, Shaun?
Well, initially it was very different for me because I was brought up on the coast. I come from the Tariel Bar area, about 20 minutes walk from 20 minutes walk from the beach. So I grew up on the coast fishing, surfing and all that. So when we moved out of the country, we did it in the middle of a drought in 2014. So we went from one extreme, having a lot of water in the ocean, to absolutely nothing out here. So it's been a bit of an adjustment as far as my recreation and where I spend my time relaxing, usually on the beach, but not so here. So it's life's still good. There's a lot of positives out here.
So you must be missing the beaches, or when you first moved, you must be missing the beaches and the fishing. It's quite different out there in Coonamble where you are.
I do, and I enjoy when we holiday. We go back to the coast, and I'm reminded of how much I do miss the coast actually when I go back. But yeah, but no, it's all good. The Lord blesses wherever you are, and you find other distractions to keep you going. So
Yes, yes.
yeah.
Now, understand, Shaun, that prior to being involved in church, church ministry, shall I say, you were involved in literature evangelism. Is that correct?
Yes, I became a literature evangelist at the age of 29. I left a full-time job. I felt the calling there to go and knock on doors and sell religious books in the secular country. So it certainly wasn't well, it was my idea, but I'm sure the Lord called me, and there were miracles actually that brought me into it. And but I did that for 15 years. On and off, like 15 years constantly, but sometimes I'd take a little bit of a break and do some building and in between that as well. So, but yeah, ministry in the LA work for a good part of 15 years before I got into planning a church.
Mm. And you're a book author as well, kids book author, if I understand correctly.
Yes, well, that came out of being a literature evangelist and finding a need there to put some rhyming Bible stories into homes. And also my children were very young at that point, and it started from there actually. We used to tell them bedtime stories, and they really loved the Dr. Zeus books. And we didn't have any rhyming Bible stories at the time, so I used to write them stories, bedtime story. And I noticed how they really loved the rhyme, and I sent a couple of stories into the publishing company who liked them, and went on to publish a set of 12, and they're called the Moose Stories. A little plug for them. You'll see them in the Better Books and Food there. Yeah.
Nice. And just on Saturday night, just as we were closing Sabbath, I was in touch with a good former literature evangelist friend of mine. You probably know him, Jared French.
Yes, I know Jared.
And he's down in Victoria, Dandenongs, planting a church down there. So he
Wow.
said he's
Yeah.
been really, really enjoying it. So tell me, Shaun, comparing your experience for literature evangelism to being involved in full church ministry, if I could put it that way, with mission and evangelism, what are the sort of similarities? What are some of the things which are quite different? What would be the key in making that transition?
Okay, well, one of the main lessons I learned, I guess, not early on, it probably took me a year or two to learn this, but with literature evangelism, you are creating relationships and building relationships very quickly. I mean, you might know the person, you knock at their door, and within an hour, you walk, they've made a decision to purchase your book. So you've got to really be able to build a rapport with someone very quickly. And the results are very quick. You know, you walk away with the sale, you leave the books in the home, the books do the work. When I came into ministry, I was sort of working on that premise of, you know, doing things quickly and expecting results quickly. But I sort of worked out that most people don't have that expectations, and when you're working with other people and really trying to get results in a place where there was no church to begin with, takes quite a lot of building and it takes quite a lot of time to do. So that's probably the thing that I had to change most. There are similarities with that, in that you really need to build relationships with people is the key, particularly when you haven't got a core group and your family's moved to a town. It's important that you know, you build relationships with people and pray and look for those opportunities for those relationships to grow. And that takes time. We've been out here for this is our 7th year, and I think we've had about 7 baptisms, which isn't sort of record breaking, but this is a town that hasn't had an Adventist presence, and you know, we've sort of worked on that and those relationships, those long-term relationships, they're the key to that. So that's probably the biggest change, I guess, with the short-term, you know, doing things quickly in the LE ministry. To church planting tends to be a lot more, takes longer. So I'm not very patient at times, so that was probably the hardest thing to learn.
Yeah, so basically there was no Adventist church in Coonamble, and you went out there and you started a church out there. Is that correct?
Yeah, the church, actually a literature evangelist, bought a plot of land about 25 or 30 years ago. I just can't recall his name at the moment, but he bought it for about $4,000, and the conference helped him out, and they put a hall on this block of land. It's about 1,000 square metres, and they put a hall at the back, and they'd actually planned to develop it and put a church on the front. But things sort of fell apart, and just remained a hall that was being rented out to the sewing club, or the high school did their exams in there once a year. So it never really took off. So we did have a church building or a hall to start off with, which was an advantage. I think it certainly made things easier to have that. But yeah, there were no Adventists worshipping here, or no Adventist presence. The nearest would have been Coonamble. Yeah.
So tell us a bit about Coonamble in terms of the town. What's it like to live out there? What's ministry? What's it like to plant a church in Coonamble?
Yeah, listen, you get to know a lot of people very quickly. You know, people are very friendly in country towns. On a sort of a shallow level, I guess, you get to people wave to you, and you get to know people to say hi to and rub shoulders. But to take it to that next level is challenging, particularly if you weren't born in the town. You know, there's about 3,000 or 4,000 people in Coonamble, and a lot of people have been over 50% are generational. You know, their parents have lived here, and so on. With that regard to things, it's difficult to break in. But having said that, you get this transitional sector of people that sort of come into town, who we have more success with. Having said that, we have had success too with people who have been born and bred here. But it's more difficult than people who are in a transition, have moved to the area. They're not part of the fabric of the town. So there's that to contend with. But listen, the town's accepted us really well. We do a food bank, and we do an op shop as well. We set that up. We built an extra building to do that. And actually, just last week was a big write-up in the paper about what we do and the support we've done for the farmers. So planning a church in the country is very hands-on. You've really got to be involved with the community and addressing felt needs in the community. And fortunately, I've had on my team a couple of people who have hopped on board who are very active and hard workers and who've taken on that ministry and being able to, and it's recognised. You mean you don't realise it, but people know, like being a small community, people know what you're doing, and a little bit goes a long way.
Mm. So if you were recommending, if there was a young person, maybe a literature evangelist or a Bible worker or someone who just really felt called to move into a country town out in the inland Australia, what are some of the key tips that you would say? What would you say to them? This is the best way to start in your ministry in planting a church. What would you tell them?
Okay. Well, it depends what kind of a person they are, what skills they bring to it. If they're the type of person who likes to take risks, and be a sort of a pioneer and just go in and have a crack, like jumping in the deep end and learning how to swim while you're in the water, I guess. It can be a bit like that, particularly if you haven't got a core team. If you've got a core team, I think is the smartest way to go, definitely. I would say, even if it was your family and maybe a couple of families moved out. But if you are the type of person who doesn't mind having a crack at things and sort of doesn't mind making mistakes and sort of going in and just making it up as they go, which is pretty much what we had to do out here, then I'd recommend do it. The conference has been so supportive of us since we came out, and we couldn't have done what we've done out here without the financial backing and the support we've had from the conference. And that's what I find. If you're willing to go out into a regional area where no one else is willing to go, you'll find that people will back you, because some people just don't know what they want to do in ministry, but they like backing people. If they can see someone doing something that's advancing God's kingdom, they'll get behind you. I mean, we had a $10,000 donation by one of the churches in Coonamble. I mean, a charismatic church that closed down donated $10,000 to what we were doing, because they could see we were active in the community. And I find that if sometimes we wait until all the ducks line up. But I think if you're the type of person who just wants to jump in and do something, God will make up what's lacking. I'm not, I do a bit of building and different stuff like that, but I didn't have any experience in church planting or ministry, and made mistakes along the way. I mean, there's things I learned, now that if I did it again, I'd do differently. But the thing is, God made up for all those mistakes, and we've had success out here. So probably the biggest part of the advice, if into church planning anywhere, I guess, is you're not always going to have everything lined up for you, but just give it a go. And you've got a lot of support through the conference and through people who want to support your ministry. And be active, actually find a need in the community, address it, and just serve people. And the things, as I said, we had money donations from other churches. We had, things just came along, and we, things have sort of worked out for us. We're still working out, obviously, but that'd be my bit of advice. And I wish I could be a bit more technical on that, but just go in, have a go, and sure, if you can plan things is great. Plan it, have a strategy, but at the end of the day, you're not going to have all the answers. You've just got to get in and have a go, and you'll find that when you move out of your comfort zone, you'll see God a lot more clearly. God's waiting to reach out and help you when you move out of your comfort zone. So don't be afraid to do that, to move out before you have all the answers. And I just think a willingness to serve and do ministry, God will bless that.
So how did you find out the needs in Coonamble, and what were those needs as well?
Well, when we first got here, we noticed a lot of children running around with not much to do. A lot of the clubs had shut because of insurance policies these days. You know, there used to be a lot to do for children, but now because of the, litigation and the insurance costs a lot, people have stopped doing things. So we had a lot of children around. So we started a kids club to start off with, and found that was just a good place to start, because within weeks we had more children than what we could handle. And that was a good place to start and be active and start serving the community. And through that, we got to know the parents, and people got to know what we were doing. So in Coonamble, that's where we started with children's ministry.
No, that's really amazing, and I do remember, you telling me about the kids club, and really glad to hear it's really met a need. So kind of flying over to the other town that you're supporting as well, which is Burke, kind of zooming over there. Tell us a bit more about Burke and your ministry there.
Yeah, well, Burke, probably there's some similarities between Burke and Coonamble. But Burke's had a very checkered history as far as the Adventist presence goes there. We've got a good facility over there with the church, but it's been an on again, off again proposition for many years. And so that was one of the things that concerned me. Like, we could go and do what we've done before, but was it going to be any different, 3, 4, 5 years down the track? What's going to sustain the influence that we have there? So that was a main question I had in Burke. And listen, children's ministry could have worked in Burke, but we already were committed with kids ministry at Coonamble, and there's a lot of work involved. So we sort of had to look at some other areas that could be sustained. And fortunately, we've got a Bible worker there, Albert and Lainey, and a young family there that live at Burke as well. So we thought, we had a look at a few options, and there's just no place where people can buy cheap furniture there. There's a brand new furniture shop, but there's nothing secondhand. There used to be a guy that came up from Orange to do it, but he passed away. So a lot of people find it difficult to have the basic. A lot of people in the lower spectrum of income find it difficult to buy furniture and things. So we're opening up a second-hand furniture store on the main street. The church, again, has been very supportive and bought the shop in the main street. It's actually two shops together. So we rent one out, which pays for the mortgage, and the other one we'll use as our business premises. It's got a little room at the back, which we'll use as a sort of a Bible study room. So people will come in and out, we'll get to know them, and Albert will be the main one driving that, and he'll be able to do his Bible studies out the back. And it's just sort of a front door, like the church is situated on the edge of town, and yeah, it's sort of, because it's got that, I guess, that stigma that's been shut again, open again, shut again, open again. We really needed to have a useful presence in town, and I think this will be something that will, everyone knows about it already. I mean, we've been renovating in there, and I leave the door open so people come in while I'm renovating and doing stuff, and they ask what's going on. So everyone knows, and they're waiting for this shop to open. So I think that's been giving us a useful presence in town, which we haven't really had in Burke. I mean, it's difficult when you haven't got people who want to live out in the outback. So we're looking at ways that we can encourage people, volunteers, to come out and serve out there, not only from Australia, but places like Vanuatu, Australia's already got agreement with Vanuatu on labour, fruit picking and stuff like that. So we're looking into that, because you need people out there. That's the main resource that we lack out at Burke, is having people on the ground to work.
In terms of, you mentioned previously with Coonamble that one of the things is you've got this, generational population. people that have lived there, because their parents and grandparents and all the way back. And the Bible, Jesus actually talks about finding a person of peace in a community. And what would you say? Have you seen that kind of dynamic at work? Just finding a person of peace who can kind of be the doorway or the window into into a community.
Um, just trying to think of the people who have come in. I haven't heard of that that phrase, but certainly I can think of a lady that was baptised last year who is a very, very peaceful person, who's been in this area her whole life and who has contacts. So that might be something worth following up from that point. But yeah, just anyone, I guess, who's
open spiritually.
Open spiritually, yes, and certainly people of peace are better to have in your church. You need a lot of people of peace who are more concerned about doing and serving than the political side of things. But yeah, no, that's a good point. No, that'd be a good one to follow up.
So you've got the secondhand shop in Burke that's starting up. If you were to build on that, would kids ministry, kids clubs be something that some of the volunteers or the team could work on as well out there?
Yes, well, kids ministry's been done before at Burke, and it's been successful. So I definitely think that would be a way to go out there. The other church in Burke, there is an Aboriginal church in Burke that does very well. Its pastors live there for 30 odd years. So, there's actually Burke is probably, if you were to compare Burke and Coonamble, there's more spirituality in Burke than there is Coonamble. There's more active members that go to churches at Burke. So I think
that's quite an interesting observation.
Yes, it's by a long way too. I think there are more active churches in Burke than what there are Coonamble, and they're both about the same size now. Burke's had a reduction in people living there over the past 15 years due to the drought. Actually, a lot of people, it's sort of really fallen away. But but they've had other churches sort of come and go too. Cornerstone has been there. So I think the important thing for Burke is to set up a structure where people can come and volunteer, whether they're grey nomads, whether they're people who just want to do ministry for 12 months, want a 12-month break, to continue it on. That's been our biggest challenge out there, is to do something consistently for a long time.
What would you say have been some of the successes? You mentioned the other Aboriginal church, obviously another denomination. What were some of the things which worked well there? So the pastor's been there for 30 years. Any other sort of keys to their effectiveness?
Yeah, listen, I know the pastor there, and he knows a lot of people there. Obviously, he's part of the fabric of the community there, and he's got a lot of respect too. I don't think they do many outreach programs there. Most of it's because it's an Aboriginal church. There's 38% Indigenous percent to the population, so it's more than Coonamble. Just so family sort of come along. But I guess he has the main struggles that most churches do, in people being active and on fire. So but they are supportive too. The church there is supportive of us, and we've had people from their church come to our service. We have a service once a month, so we borrow some of their musicians and they come and play on a Sabbath, and we've had some interesting discussions, and so it's we get along very well with the other church, particularly the Aboriginal church.
So what's your vision for Coonamble and Burke, say in 5-10 years? What would you really love to see out there?
Oh, listen, I'd love to see it continue to grow. We've done a lot in Coonamble, we've done a lot of building. We've built 3 new buildings, and we're growing. People can see that we're actually expanding. Our membership's growing, the buildings are growing. There's a block next door with a house on it. We'd like to, 10 years' time, hopefully acquire that and sort of add to what we're doing. I'd like to see it continue to grow. Be able to, with the rapport we've made in town now, it would be a good time to do a reaping, with some seminars and invite our contacts along. So I'd like to see it continue to grow, particularly in membership. And the other churches are shrinking. It's going to come to the point in 10 years' time where there are going to be 2 churches out here, and that's the way it's heading. You're going to have the Catholic Church and you're going to have the Seventh-day Adventist Church, because 3 churches have closed since we've been out here in 7 years. So, we're going in the opposite direction than the trend, which I'd like to see to continue to happen. And people can see that we're alive, and it's actually a living organism that's growing. It's not shrinking or dying. So that would be, when I'm sort of finished up here, I'd like to see someone take it on with the passion of making it grow and doing better than what I've done, making it expand and have more influence in the town. And I think that's realistic too, with how far we've come in the last 7 years.
With the current COVID-19 virus situation, there's been a lot of interest in end time events. When you're talking about regional outback, ministry, is people in regional towns, is that something which kind of they're interested in, they're concerned about? How do they feel about some of these global situations we're facing?
Yeah, well, I think it's actually it's spiked a few people's curiosity and interest in certainly the lack of security. Like, all of a sudden, you can't get things from the shop, and people have been unsettled, and we have had more conversations relating to what's happening, and end time ministry. Certainly there has been more interest in that area, but I think I think we'll see a lot more as the months progress. So things have changed. They certainly have changed. We've just got to make sure that we change with it and make the most of these opportunities that come up.
Well, Shaun, it's been really good to be able to spend half an hour with you today. And I'm sure that everyone who gets the opportunity to listen and hear your story and your experience will be really blessed by it. And I was just wondering, as we end this interview together, would you be able to pray for the church planters around our conference, around Australia, around the world as well? But also, there might be people who listen to this and they'll be going like, yes, I really feel a call to come out to Coonamble, Burke, some of those regional towns. And if you could, pray for church planters and people who may be interested in coming out as well.
Sure. Okay. Let's bow our heads. Dear Father in heaven, it's just nice to chat here with Sven and talk about what's been happening out at Coonamble and Burke. I just pray, Lord, that those who have listened and those who are considering taking on a church planting role, that you will lead them very directly, Lord, inspire them, encourage them, and help them to realise, Lord, that they don't have to have all the answers, they don't have to have the whole plan, but just a desire to serve you and to move out of their comfort zone. I just pray, Lord, that you will bless them and give them that courage to do that. Lord, we think of the church planters who are currently active in the various church plants around the conference, around Australia, and indeed around the world. And I just pray you'll give an extra measure of your spirit to them, Lord. It is a frontline ministry. We are encroaching on the devil's territory, Lord, and for that reason it can be hard at times, can be difficult. So I just pray you'll give each church planter an extra portion of your spirit to cope with these challenges. Thank you, Lord. I pray for Sven that you continue to bless him as he expands your kingdom through his passion for church planting. And I pray you'll be with his family and all the families too of those who are church planters. May you bless them abundantly. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Shaun. It's been really good to talk to you, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
When all the restrictions are over. See you. Thanks, Sven. Bye.
Bye.